It's live now.
Thank you so much, Anna. So good afternoon and welcome to the virtual meeting of the Education Advisory Board. I'm Councillor Susie Horton. I'll be chairing the meeting today, and members of the public are invited to view this meeting. Those present are requested to keep their microphones on mute and only turn them on when they're called to speak. It does say that members are requested to keep their cameras turned on at all time and officers not, but in actual fact, I think I'll just be looking at a lot of blank faces, so feel free to keep them on. Members who wish to speak, should they arrive, need to use the chat, so I won't go through that at the moment. But for other people, if you do want to speak, if you put RTS, and I shall just make sure that the chat bar is visible to me. So I'll go through a list of attendees, and if you could confirm that you're present, that would be great. Okay, so the attendance checklist for today's meeting is Councillor Ryan Brent. No. Councillor Tom Coles has sent his apologies. He is at work. Councillor Terry Norton. No. Mike Stoneman.
Yes, present.
Thanks, Mike. Debbie Anderson.
Yes, present.
Alison Critchley.
Yes, I'm here.
And Anna is present. I probably should have said your titles as you didn't, so I shall go back up. So Mike is the Deputy Director of Children, Families and Education. Debbie is the Head of School Improvement. Alison is Head of Sufficiency and Resources, and Anna is the Local Democracy Officer. Okay, so also we have Francis.
Yes, I'm here. Francis Soul.
Welcome. And Rob Sanders.
Yeah, present.
Welcome to both of you. So the apology, so item 1 on this agenda, have I missed anyone else out? No, I think I've got everyone. So
yes, you missed me.
Oh, Sarah!
I'm ever so offended now. So Sarah Daly, Director of Children, Families, Education.
I do apologise about that, Sarah. Okay, so apologies from Councillor Tom Coles, from Robert Dare, who's the Roman Catholic Diocese, from Helen Reader, who's the National Education Union. Are there any other apologies, Anna?
None that I know of.
Okay, thank you. So the next item 2, is the declarations of interest. I will do my usual one, which is I am Vice Chair Governance at Craneswater Junior School, and does anyone else have any declarations of interest? No. So the third item is the minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 21st of March 2022. We need to ensure that this is a correct record of the meeting held then. I know they've been circulated before. Are there any comment about the minutes, or can we say that they are a correct record for those people who were at the meeting? I've read them through and I think they're a correct record. Okay, in which case I can't see anyone wanting to speak, so I will say that they're correct record and the minutes are approved. Right, okay, on to the substantive items. So item 4, which is support and challenge to LA maintained schools, local authority maintained schools. And Debbie, you're going to present the report. Over to you.
Thank you very much. So this report follows on to previous ones that I have provided for this board, and it's really about the challenge and support for our 18 LA maintained schools as we are sort of coming out of the pandemic. So because of the pandemic, a lot of our schools that were due to be Ofsted inspected hadn't been. So one of the main things that I have worked on with them to provide particularly support for them is in training and development, because I firmly believe that if you are prepared for an Ofsted inspection, if you have the understanding of the framework, then you are better able to control it, to show your school at your best, and get the judgment that you well and truly deserve. So that's been a key focus of my training and development. And then we have had a number of our schools who have recently been inspected. So we've had St Edmunds Catholic Secondary, Craneswater Juniors, and you will know, Susie, as you were interviewed for that one as a governor, Devonshire Infants, and more recently St John's Cathedral Catholic Primary School have also been inspected. None of those reports are out yet because the turnaround time is that they take a number of weeks to be written, to be quality assured, to go back to the school, to have factual accuracy checks before they're even published. So we're expecting that they will be published sometime in September. So any judgments or anything is confidential to the school and those present at that final feedback. What I would say is that I have done training for our senior school leaders, teaching staff, subject leaders, governors, and I think that our schools have found that particularly supportive because I sometimes work for Ofsted as an inspector as well. They feel it's given them a real understanding of the framework. And one school deputy head teacher actually felt that the training that I did with her was probably more challenging than the than the actual inspection itself. I don't think that's not because the inspection wasn't challenging, but I think because they felt prepared to manage it and to say the things that they wanted to and to contribute to the evidence base. And another school said, along with the introduction of our involvement in the LA peer reviews, the training for my staff and governors has is worked intensively with English and math leaders, and this proactive approach has ensured we've been fully aware of what has needed to be done and the urgency with which we've needed to complete certain actions, a good level of challenge for us all. And that's a direct quote. So I think that was true for a number of schools because of the pandemic. Not only did they need to understand the framework, but actually it was picking back up their practice and showing what they could do in relation to the Ofsted inspection framework as well. So for some schools, there was a particular sense of urgency around some actions. But I think, they seem really positive about it. So that was one aspect of the training and development. And I think performance information and collecting that data, teacher assessment, administration of SATs and exams has been another aspect of training development that we've really needed to do. Our lead moderator, the member of staff who works for me, who covers this, we've both done some monitoring of that administration of testing and assessments. And I think our schools have got out of practice of doing that. Particularly in primary, where they haven't even had to submit teacher assessment, although those grades like secondaries have. So we've talked about it in terms of rusty practice. So there will be further training that will need to happen next year to make sure that our gathering our data, our tracking and assessment, the administration of our testing and our assessment is really spot on. So that's training and development. Our LA maintained schools have been supported by the peer review process. They all took part, all 18, although some have, I think about 4. We've actually carried out 14 LA maintained schools peer reviews, which, considering the year that it's been, has been great. And 4 of them have deferred till next year, which is understandable because of staff absence. But they've talked a lot about how it's supported leaders and their own schools, really, and that getting out into other schools and offering that professional challenge and support has been a strong piece of our work. We've also done other things. We've set up spreadsheets to make sure that they're aware of statutory requirements for their policies and websites. It's not that they weren't beforehand, but now it's in a central place. And also, if they've got ideas of best practice or model policies, they can add to that as well. Obviously, safeguarding is a huge, vital area of our work. And we've developed some extra things around that for our LA maintained schools, and we're doing some what we've called as sampling visits. So there's no way that you can go in and see everything for safeguarding, and it's not a tick list. So you can't say on this day it was effective. It's a sample of that. But the schools that we started that with has been really well supported, and they found that quite challenging but supportive, because you can never rest on your laurels. You can never be complacent about safeguarding. Our termly visits from the Education SLT, so myself and my colleagues and Mike, we go out termly to all of our LA maintained schools, and that's really been successful in developing the relationship that we have with our LA maintained schools. They're able to share things with us in a more ongoing, open, honest, transparent relationship than I think we've probably had with them beforehand. Obviously, reading is a massive area for our work, language and literacy, so that the reading work that we've done, and some of our schools being part of the Destination Reader programme, has been particularly useful developing reading, as has some work that I've done about early reading in secondary schools. So early reading doesn't necessarily mean early years, it's about struggling readers in secondary schools. And as inspectors, some information was shared with us, and I was able to provide some Edmonds with some of that training cascaded before they were inspected themselves. So I think that was a fair bit of support there. Obviously, our phonics, that's really, really important. We now have a suite of 5-minute phonic videos on the Portsmouth Education Partnership website. And I think all of our LA maintained schools that have got Key Stage 1 are now using a validated systematic synthetic phonics program. One school is choosing not to, but they've had to write a rationale, I've advised, and really map out why they're not following a validated one, why they're following their own program, and still making sure that it's got the rigor and therefore having the impact that it needs to. While we're on the literacy focus, obviously our literacy trust, our Pompey Pirates and Portsea Sailors, that does contain some of our LA maintained schools, access that. And with my colleague, we're also looking at potentially expanding to a 3rd hub. And to complete my report, our partnership working with our LA maintained schools, we're now looking to devise a sort of a document and agreed expectations. What can our schools expect from us as the local authority, and what could and should we expect from them? So we've started that piece of work, but we're moving towards a co-production workshop in September, where we're actually going to flesh that out together. So true co-production working with our LA maintained schools. I put a couple of things in the appendices. One, a primary accountability measures document, because there are huge caveats about looking at any performance information this year and any comparisons. And the Destination Reader report that I had to send off as well.
Thank you so much, Debbie. It is credit you for all the work that you've been doing, especially as we mustn't forget how difficult this year has been as well. I think everyone talks about the first bit of the pandemic, but you know, coming out of it and trying to pick things up and dealing with, you know, children who have a lot of them had not been in school for a significant amount of time. I think it's great, but I think we've done a really good job at actually maintaining high expectations whilst being understanding and supporting schools as they are coming out and facing all the challenges, particularly around school readiness, and also, you know, and some of the challenges around that in terms of mental health as well, and anxiety. Mike, you want to add something?
Yeah, just wanted to say something, because we're obviously talking about LA maintained schools and the challenge and support we provide them, of which there are 18 left now. And just to say actually that the relationship with our LA maintained schools is probably as strong as I can remember, really. And the meetings we've had with them, which are half-termly in terms of all of the schools, has been really productive, and the feedback from schools has been really positive. They are slightly nervous about the white paper and what that means to them in terms of academisation, and we'll be talking a bit about that later in a verbal update around the priority education investment areas, and whether or not we ought to be considering setting up an LA established trust, which to date we haven't looked into in any sort of detail. But apart from that degree of nervousness, actually they're all in a pretty good shape. One or two that we're keeping an eye on, but overall it's a fairly positive picture.
Thank you, Mike. Rob, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, Mike's just alluded to my question. It sounds like there's lots of positive work that's been going on, so that's fantastic to hear, and that relationships are strong. My question was simply, what sort of percentage of schools are causing concern, and can you give any examples of what sort of concerns there are, or are all schools in a good place, and if Ofsted was visiting them all, they'd all be good or above, or what's your overall picture?
Debbie, do you want to come in for what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do, yes. Yeah, I think of our LA maintained schools, the vast majority are in a strong and steady place, considering the period of time they've had. One of our schools back in November 21 had a Section 8 inspection, and a Section 8 one won't change the grade. It's about good and outstanding schools, whether they remain good or outstanding and is safeguarding effective. Or there are a couple of other outcomes, basically saying, had it been a full inspection, it could have been better, in which case the Ofsted will be back within 1-2 years. Or what's known as an outcome 3, had it been a full Section 5, the outcome might not have remained at good. And therefore, again, come back in 1 to 2 years. We did have one school that had that outcome 3 judgment in November. So we have been working with that school, and there is particularly from September, there is a lot of intensive support going on there, with the appointment of a new head teacher as well. So working really closely with them. Everybody else, I would say, is in a strong and steady position of our LA maintained schools.
Thank you. That's really good to hear. Thank you.
Good question. Before we move on, I just wanted to say something about the range of things we're doing around literacy and reading, because I think it's needed now more than ever. I think probably everybody on this call will say, of course, it opens doors. It's the future, is the language development, has always been really important. And I think, government ministers will come and go, and policies will change, and white papers will come, and but there are some things that stay the same, and actually literacy has got to be the thing that is always a constant. And there's some great stuff going on. I mean, as a governor, I was immersed in the Destination Reader and a learning walk, and I've been a primary school teacher. I was really impressed at the stuff there, and if you haven't read it already, Debbie's report on those outcomes is really quite impressive. So thank you to all the range of stuff we're doing, that we need to keep doing it for these kids, because it's directly linked with their aspirations and their future lives, really. So thank you. It's a really, really good report. Okay.
I do work with the Portsmouth Education Partnership Early Language and Literacy Development Group, and we had our final meeting of the year the other day, and we were saying we've done so much around reading and phonics. Where do we go next? And actually, the consensus of opinion is oracy, language and vocabulary development, because if you don't have the language and the words, then you can't use that for your reading and writing. And also that has a key place to interplay with relational practice as well. So we think that's going to be our overarching umbrella focus for next year.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Very exciting. Thank you. So for this item then, that members of the board note the actions that have been taken to support and challenge LA maintained schools since the last report. Thank you so much for that. And moving swiftly on to item 5, which is the response to COVID-19. And I'll hand over to Alison.
Thank you. I sometimes think with this report, it's sort of therapy for me writing it and going back over what's happened. And this is our historical document about what we have done over the last 7 terms in relation to COVID. I mean, I think, and actually, as I was writing it, I think I said at the beginning, this might be our last report. And just before I came into this meeting, saw the briefing for members and everybody about COVID rates going up and up. So perhaps we're not quite at the end. I mean, I think just taking a step back, I suppose what I would highlight is that over this last year, disruption to education in Portsmouth and nationally in terms of groups of children being sent home and school closures and partial closures, we've really been able to move away from that. But I think it's important to say that actually there has still been significant disruption, and being able to provide that continuity of provision has come at a significant cost in terms of staff, leadership, teaching assistants, everybody throughout the school, making sure that there is a competent body in front of the children every day to provide that learning. And I suppose linked to that, and Councillor Horton, actually it fits very much with what you have said, whilst we may well be, or maybe not, but moving away from having infection control as a separate pet priority and a separate strand of work. I suppose the key thing I wanted to say is that it hasn't gone away, and the impact will not have gone away kind of all the way through, really. With this, been a lot of talk and from government in terms of catch up, and that quite narrow narrative around catch up, and clearly that's really important in ensuring that children are at a place where they've got the literacy skills to move on to the next stage. But it's not just about that, it's about the children being emotionally ready and some of those issues. And also I think the impact on our workforce, I think possibly we're seeing part of that in terms of recruitment and retention of teaching assistants, but it may well be that people all the way through, perhaps as we feel like we're moving to a next stage, there may be issues around retention. So I suppose my plea and suggestion would be that as we look and we're doing next year's PEP plan and thinking about priorities, whilst we may not have COVID in quite the same way, and I think we'll all be very pleased not to have COVID in quite the same way, I think thinking through how that is affecting attendance, attainment, retention, that whole set of issues will be important. And in some ways, the lessons from it and the way it affects us, we keep feeling a bit more about that. So that's all I wanted to say. But happy to take any questions or pick up any points.
Thank you. I mean, I think there's very much a sense of living it alongside it, whilst not, and actually, so there becomes this sense of moving forward, whilst at the same time realizing that it hasn't gone away, and it's just a shift, isn't it, an emphasis. And I think the report portrays that well. I do think it's a really fascinating document. I'm not sure that how it just evolved, didn't it, as each stage went on. But I read it from beginning to end again, and I thought, wow. And you actually go on the journey again and you can remember all these things that happened. But I think you make some really, really good points there. But also coming back to the last report that we had, is that report summarizes the work that we're doing with those schools in the face of the post-pandemic kind of legacy. And so the world is not exactly the same, even though we're trying to sort of maneuver it back to being sort of normal, whatever that means anymore. Okay, so thank you so much for that. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? So we think that is the last one. But all predictions at the moment are there's going to be a bit of a flu pandemic and another sort of COVID spike in September. But I guess we'll make a decision about whether we think it's worthwhile to actually add on to this report, or whether it just becomes a kind of business as usual commentary in the context of everything else. Okay, thank you. No other comments. So for this board, we note the actions that have been taken by the council and partners to respond to the pandemic and the ongoing work that's in place in order to continue to support education settings. We note that in line with the council's wider arrangements for responding to coronavirus, the infection control in schools group is being stood down. But the new Portsmouth City Council Health Protection Board will meet quarterly. We'll have an education representation, including from schools. And thirdly, we note that whilst we are not anticipating significant disruption to children's education due to COVID directly, the effects of the pandemic on children and education are likely to continue to be felt for some time to come. Okay, so thank you so much for that. Moving on to the next item, which is Ofsted School Inspections Update. Mike, you presenting this, or is this?
Yeah, no, I'll cover this one. Yeah, just briefly. Yeah. Okay,
thank you.
So as we normally do in these meetings, we sort of give you the latest update on on school inspections, and this is for the spring and summer terms. Bear in mind the last report was for the summer and autumn terms of last year. There were 11 Ofsted inspections that were carried out by Ofsted over this period. Having said that, since we wrote this report, there have been a couple more. So Debbie referred to St John's Catholic Primary School, which was last week, and then also, as we speak, there'll be an inspection taking place tomorrow at Flying Bull Academy. So those two obviously are not included in the report, but they just for you to note those two. We've also provided in the appendix just the overall position for Ofsted judgments, which I'll come on to later. So again,
have I frozen?
Oh,
I think I froze. I froze.
Yeah, you can still hear me, all right? Yep, good. Because I've been having problems today, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was me. Of those 11 Ofsted school inspections, just to say that 7 of them were Section 8 inspections, as Debbie's just described what a Section 8 inspection is, but we've had also 4 full Section 5 inspections. And also, again, backing up what Debbie said, the majority, unfortunately, we don't have the final reports yet. I mean, we do have an indication of how they went, but we don't have the final reports, and therefore we can't give any details about how those inspections went until we get the publication. But we do have 4, which I'll come on to in a moment. So in table 1, just quickly run through that. That sets out the 11. By the way, there's a small error here. So further down, I've got Northern Parade Infant. That should have read Northern Parade Junior, so apologies, we'll make that correction because we've had both inspections of Northern Parade Infant and Junior over the course of this period. So just starting from the top, Cliffdale Primary Academy, which is with Solent Academies Trust, that was a Section 8 inspection. Yeah, a really good performance here, so was outstanding before the inspection and continues to be outstanding. So yeah, really pleased with the outcome for Cliffdale Primary. Less pleased with Northern Parade Infant School, which had a Section 5 inspection. There was no previous outcome available due to the school being transferred to King's. Having said that, though, before the transfer, they were previously good, but the inspection came out as requiring improvement, and so we'll be watching that one carefully. The Portsmouth Academy with the Thinking Schools Academy Trust, that was a Section 8 inspection, and that continues to be good, so a really pleasing outcome there. And then also another really good outcome was for Westover Primary, which is with Hamwick. That was a full Section 5. They were previously requiring improvement, but they have moved to good. So yeah, really good outcome there. The other inspections that have taken place, which I'll just run through, but as I say, haven't been published yet. Castleview Academy, that was a full Section 5 in June. Craneswater Junior, which has been referred to, that was a Section 8, also in June. St Edmund's Catholic School, Section 8, that was in June also. Northern Parade Junior, not infant, so apologies there, with King's Academies, that was a Section 8. Devonshire Infant, and again, there's a mistake there, actually. I've just noticed we've got University of Chichester Matt there. I don't know why that's there. That's an LA maintained school, so sorry, we'll correct that. That was towards the end of June. Aberlord Nelson School, that was a Section 8, back end of June. And then we've had more recently Charter Academy, which is with ARC, and that was in July. And as I say, we've had 2 further inspections, St John's last week and Flying Bull, which is tomorrow and Wednesday. So apologies for those 2 errors, we'll correct that. In terms of the overall position, so just in Section 5, 90% of inspected schools are now either good or outstanding, and just under 92% of pupils are taught in inspected schools that are good or outstanding, and that's a pretty good position to be in, which is slightly above the national average. Obviously, we're hoping that the other inspections that we referred to are also going to be good outcomes, which will hopefully further improve those figures. But yeah, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mike. Debbie, I probably should know this, but I know the difference between a Section 5 and a Section 8, but how do they do it in the same amount of time?
It's
a different... got 2 days.
It has got 2 days. Section 8's used to be shorter, but it's to do with the methodology and what they're looking at. So it's not a Section 5 scaled down. It's a different way of looking at it. And there's what's called still quality of education is a huge focus, safeguarding, and then there's what's called 4 spotlight areas. So it's a different methodology. You're not trying to squeeze a section 5 into a different way of doing it.
Thank you.
And the terms for them are changing for September. They're going to be called, the section 5s are going to be called graded inspections, because that's when every area of the framework is looked at and graded. And section 8s are going to be called ungraded, because effectively it's not a full inspection and it's not actually changing the grade in itself. So that's to help clarify that.
I like that better. I don't
Yeah.
remember numbers very well.
Mm.
That's great. Anyone else got any questions or comments? No. Thank you very, very much for that really thorough report. That is great. So we note that report. The next couple of reports are verbal updates. So 7, are we staying with you, Mike, on the priority education investment areas?
Yes, and others might want to chip in, Francis in particular. So on the priority education investment area, just you'd probably be aware of some of this, but just a little bit of background. So last year there was an announcement around 55 education investment areas where there were going to be sort of targeted support for those areas. And this was to take into account the fact that their performance, particularly around attainment and progress, was below where it needs to be. And we were one of those areas that was identified. And then in, I think, February of this year, they made a further announcement about priority education investment areas. And there were 12 new areas, one of which was Portsmouth. The other 12 were the existing opportunity areas. So Hastings, for example, which is a local authority we've been working with, but there were 12 new areas, and we were pretty much the only one in the southeast. Well, we were the only one in the southeast. In fact, I think you'd have to go Midlands upwards to find any of the other new ones, which very much puts the spotlight on Portsmouth. And there's a whole range of requirements for us in relation to that. But I think it is a good thing. Well, I know it's a good thing because it means further investment. It means the Portsmouth Education Partnership is going to play a key role, a pivotal role, in fact, in terms of taking this forward. And we've got a number of milestones in front of us. So we are required to conclude a data-led needs analysis by the end of September. We'll be getting some further guidance around that, but that's a piece of work which we'll be taking forward over the course of the next couple of months. And we're going to have a subgroup of the PEP Strategic Board.
Oh, I lost Mike. Oh, has everyone else lost Mike?
We've all lost Mike.
Okay.
He's back.
Can you hear me
back. Yeah, we can now.
now? All right.
We
Oh
just
dear,
got
probably
to
my
the bit
internet,
where
sorry.
we were talking about the subgroup of the PEP Strategic Board.
Okay, so the subgroup will be doing 2 things. One is doing the data-led needs analysis, which has to be completed by the end of September. And then also a detailed delivery plan, which has to be completed by the end of November. This will set out, on the basis of that data report, intelligence, what the key priorities are that we want to take forward over the course of 3 years, and where we'll be looking for investment from the centre to support that work. We've been told there is a local needs fund, and this is the £42 million that has been allocated across the 24 priority areas. As I say, we're one of those. What that means for Portsmouth, I'm not sure, but I would imagine it means a few £1 million of investment, which is good news. But we will need to demonstrate how we use that and what we're basing that on. We have been told it has to be evidence-based programs that are put forward, and we have plenty of that already. We've got our priorities, which have been agreed by the PEP Strategic Board. So we've done a lot of the groundwork for this. We are in a really good position to respond to this, and we've asked the Regions Group that we would like to retain our current structures in terms of the PEP Strategic Board to have oversight of this. There's been a bit of backwards and forwards to and froing around this in terms of whether the centre, the DFE, would accept that, but I think we've pretty much got there. And we're going to set up this subgroup to sort of do the actual work, reporting into the main board. There is another agenda here which I can't help feeling is separate, but it's going to have to feature somewhere in our plans, and that's around academisation. So we've been given a very strong steer to look to support increased academisation, which is one of the sort of priorities for priority education investment areas. I mean, we have said already to the DFE and to the Regions Group that we're kind of in a slightly different case here, because the majority of schools are already part of the multi-academy trust. We've only got 18 left, and of those 18, as you've heard from Debbie, there's only one that we've got really any concerns about. So I have said to what end, you know, to what is the purpose of trying to see this particular priority through, when actually if you were to look at the schools that we were most concerned about, they are academies. And that's not to, by the way, criticise academies, because we asked Multi-Academy Trust to take on our most challenging schools. So, you know, that's not surprising where some of the focus needs to lie. So we will respond to that. And we've had a draft paper which has come to us, which we're looking at the moment. I know Francis had a look at that. But that's probably for another day. I'm not going to go into too much detail today. Yeah, that's, I think, probably as much as I can say at this point. I mean, Francis, do you want to add anything to that? Because you're close to this as well.
Only to say we had a meeting of the PEP Strategic Board, an extraordinary meeting on Friday afternoon, and amazing attendance for a meeting called at 3-4 days' notice. And I think they will engage fully. So it will be good to get involved with it. But so much of it aligns with what we're doing already. I mean, Debbie's talking about the peer reviews. To bring the academies into that will be really strong. That all the literacy work is already going apace. So yeah, it sounds really good. But to Mike's point, it does seem to be there are two parallel tracks on this, and it remains to be seen where they take us.
And just to note for Rob, actually, we're extending the membership of the board to fit in with the terms of reference for what would have been a local partnership board, and that does include representation from the diocese. So you will be getting a future invite to those meetings.
Okay.
Thanks very much. I mean, I have said it before, but I think it's worth saying again that actually the PEP has really served us well here. And when you look at the journey of the PEP, what it was trying to do was deal with a fragmented landscape, but keep the cohesion. And then I think when the pandemic came along, it really came into its own. So it is a strange place for us to be in the sense of exactly as you say, that it works in the way that it works now. And so therefore to have that push from government, which, let's be honest, quite frequently these pushes are around about, quite rightly, dealing with the most challenging areas and making this one size fits all, and the lowest common denominator, as it were, being the point at which you make your policy decisions. And therefore it doesn't always fit with us, but we'll have to, I don't think we need to be making any drastic decisions, because the criteria on which schools have traditionally been coerced into becoming academies is not the case with our non-academy schools, our LA maintained schools. So I think we just carry on doing what we're doing until there's some more clarity about things and what choices that we have moving forward. And I think the PEP is providing a really, really powerful and strong structure to actually keep us working together. I mean, some of the stuff we do across the city, across LA maintained schools with academies, is the envy of many other areas in the country. They can't believe that as cabinet member I can even get into an academy in some places. So yeah, we have really, really a lot to feel pleased about, but also there's a lot of work that's gone into getting us to that place. So watch this space, I guess. Thank you. And sorry, Rob, do you want to come back in? Sorry, I didn't see that.
That's right. No, I requested a question. It was just an interesting, I was just interested rather in, are there many standalone academies in Portsmouth? And the recent white paper and what I'd picked up on was the government wanting less trusts, and there's quite a few different involved in Portsmouth, isn't there? So has there been much discussion around that?
Not really, because we've only got one standalone academy in the city. That's UTC Portsmouth, which is outstanding and doing very well, of course. So we don't really have that issue as such. Whereas I know that is the case in other areas where they've got lots and lots of single academy trusts, and they want to try and move them into a multi-academy trust. But no, that is on their agenda clearly, but it doesn't really apply to us.
Okay, thanks.
Good point. Okay, so we note that report, and the last report is Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 results summary, and this is a verbal update, and we're going back to Debbie, I believe.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to start with the caveat of it. So I am going to go back to that DFE document about primary accountability measures update, because there are huge health warnings about the performance information about this year. And there's really, really strong advice that nobody should be making any direct comparisons this year with 2019. There shouldn't be comparisons for schools with local or national averages, and there shouldn't be comparisons between schools. And this is due to the uneven impact of the pandemic on pupils and schools. So that's the whole health warning first. That said, we do have a national average and we do have a local authority average. And some of our schools and trusts have been asking about that. So we did put something out in the weekly comms on Friday with just some headlines. So we put the health warning first, and also that we're saying that it's unhelpful to make those comparisons, and that all staff have worked incredibly hard to support all Portsmouth children on their progress, their health and well-being. But in those terms, what we do need to say is that Portsmouth is mirroring the national picture at Key Stage 2. So that said, the combined, where you have to achieve the expected standard in each of reading, writing, maths, to have that combined one, the national average has gone down, Portsmouth's local authority average has gone down. That's the average for all of our schools. The national average for writing, maths, grammar, spelling and punctuation, those have all gone down. Portsmouth has gone down. The national average for reading, however, has gone up by 1%. However, Portsmouth's local authority average for reading has gone up by 3%. So a great good news story from 2019. So we do have a gap between our RLA average and the national average. It was 6%, it's now 4%. So I think if we're talking about those 3 years, what has gone on and what we have done with reading and our schools' hard work, the fact that our rate of increase for reading is faster than the national average has to be a good news story. And that's paid to everybody in Portsmouth who's worked so hard, and all the different aspects of reading that have gone on. So that's Key Stage 2. The other health warning with it is that there are huge variations. I did go back and look at 2019, and actually there were huge variations between the highest performers and lowest performing schools then. But this year you can really see it, and that's about that uneven impact from the pandemic. So we're not going to make comparisons. The important things for schools is, what did they get? What is that information telling us, and what are we doing about it? And then next year will be a different story. So that's Key Stage 2, but I think the fact that we're mirroring the national picture is a good thing. We're not out of kilter. Key Stage 1, there isn't any national averages yet. There is only our local authority averages. And unsurprisingly, those are down, the combined, and reading, writing and maths separately. And our phonics local authority average is down as well. But I wouldn't be surprised that will equally mirror the national average, but that information's not out. But what there is there's an Education Endowment Foundation report that was published in December 21, and that talked about the impact of COVID and school closures and subsequent support strategies on the attainment and socio-emotional well-being at Key Stage 1. And it particularly notes that the younger children are relatively less able to learn independently, and therefore could be disproportionately affected by the closures and the impact of the pandemic. So, you know, there isn't the same reading increase, but we wouldn't expect that because those year 2 children who have taken those teacher assessments have not had a normal year of school education in Key Stage 1. Their year R was disrupted, year 1 was disrupted, and their year 2 has been partially disrupted as well. So again, I think it will probably mirror the national picture. So those are the sort of verbal headlines.
Really appreciate that. Thank you. Next year, Debbie, will we pick up a comparison, or will it be almost like a reset position? Will people look back at 2019? Presumably not.
I think your guess is as good as mine. I'm not sure, to be honest. I think we will go with what the guidance and what the accountability and how the catch-up's gone.
Yeah. Just wonder how they'll do it.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. And there is no indication at this stage.
Well, that's positive about the reading, isn't it? Because, you know, that's where our focus has been. I mean, if that hadn't, then, you know, you'd be wondering, you know, whether we'd worth investing all that stuff. But that is a really positive thing. Excellent. Any other questions or comments from anyone? Thank you so much for that. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the agenda, apart from the date of the next meeting, which is Monday, the 17th of October. And I bet it won't be as warm as it is today at 4 o'clock. Location confirmed nearer the date. I'm guessing for people on this call, staying virtual is not an issue. Definitely isn't for me. I can see Francis like, so I that would be my recommendation. We don't have to meet in person for this meeting. Anna? Do we?
No, because it doesn't make decisions. You can continue to meet virtually.
Yeah, I think we'll carry on meeting virtually.
Unless there's any changes to national guidance, but
yeah, no, we'll stick with that, and I'm sure it will come round very quickly. Thank you, everyone, for your time and for those reports. They're really, really good reports, and appreciate all the questions and comments as well. Thank you, everyone.
I'll turn the live stream off.
Okay, Anna, if you turn the live stream off, and everyone else you don't have to hang around, but I will.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.